All right, so the next 10 MCQs. So if you look at question 11, a monopolist faces a downward sloping straight line demand curve, which diagram shows his total revenue curve. It would be C, and to understand why, you can simply draw the diagram. So you have price, you have quantity, you have your demand curve. And again, they've told you it's downward sloping straight line. So even if they hadn't told you it's a monopolist, you would kind of still draw this demand curve. You know that this is also your average revenue curve. Your marginal revenue curve falls twice as fast. So that's MR. So what you know here, let me in fact extend it. So what you can see from this is where your MR is 0, this is where total revenue is maximized. Think about it. Where MR is positive, this is where total revenue is going to be increasing. Where MR is negative, this is where total revenue is decreasing. So so from that, it tells you total revenue should increase at some rate, it should be maximized, then it should decrease. So that the only curve that fits that is C. 12. The diagram shows the cost and revenue curves of a monopolist. Which output will the firm produce if its aim is to maximize sales revenue? So it wants to maximize total revenue, which, as we just saw, comes about when marginal revenue is 0. So marginal revenue has to be equals to 0. This is the output that he will produce to maximize sales or total revenue. 13, a country's government reduces the specific tax. So the specific tax so your indirect tax on packets of cigarettes. What could explain why this leads to an increase in tax revenue from cigarette sales? And we had studied this in AS as well. The idea here was that the demand for cigarettes is price inelastic. Let me just draw the diagram to explain why. So you have price, you have quantity, you have an inelastic demand curve because it's cigarettes, so it's a habit forming good. And let's say your price was this before, and now it increased to this. Why did it increase? You can just simply look at it like that, because your supply curve decreased because you imposed an indirect tax.
Specific tax, not increasing it.
Oh, well, that's the complete opposite, in fact. Well, I'm not sure if the diagram would help us solve this anymore. So it reduces the specific tax, and this leads to an increase in tax revenue. Well, then clearly one thing you can cross out is B, because if it's inelastic, then a decrease in price definitely wouldn't increase tax revenue. So consumers switch to dearer brands. So like dearer is like more expensive brands. But the idea here is, if it is a specific tax, just a specific tax isn't a percentage of price, it's just a particular amount. So whichever, no matter what price you're consuming, it's like $2 or $0.5 per unit. It's not necessarily a percentage of the price. So even if you switch to a more expensive brand, that shouldn't necessarily increase your tax revenue. So okay, thank you. So let's look at C though. The price of cigarettes falls by less than the reduction in tax, but I don't see how that increases tax revenue anyways. So even whatever the price falls, price falling by how much shows who pays that tax burden. Is it the consumer? Is it the producer? But the tax burden is the same. So the revenue should decrease. It shouldn't increase. There is a reduction in illegal imports of cigarettes, and that makes sense because that means your quantity of legal packets of cigarettes goes up. So obviously there are more people consuming legal packets of cigarettes, and if they consume legal packets of cigarettes, they're going to pay tax on it. So there are more people hence paying that indirect tax. And it also makes sense because when there's less tax on the legal packet, you might as well buy the legal packet than go through the hassle of illegally importing it. So 14, which is not a policy designed to correct market failure. So competition is because it corrects monopoly power and stuff of that sort. Free inoculation against infectious diseases. Uh, I believe that is as well because, well, that's basically an example of a provision of a merit good. So increasing the allocation of like healthcare, for example. Minimum wage policy, I believe, I don't think that's anywhere related to market failure. So you can that's something that definitely does help you achieve equity, but with market failure is to help markets allocate more efficiently, especially get allocatively efficient. So it has nothing to do with market failure. Uh,
I feel like it's gonna be A.
okay. Let me just explain why it's not D. Then we can discuss that. It's not. We can agree it's not D though because river pollution, externalities, stuff of that sort. You feel like it's going to be A. Oh, why is that?
यार गवर्नमेंट जब आता है तो वो मैक्सिमम और मिनिमम वेजेस सेट करता है, तो दैट इज टू करेक्ट मार्केट फेलियर, राइट?
I feel that is to account for equity. Market failure is to improve allocative efficiency. They're both forms of government intervention, but they have different motives.
ओके.
Sharia, what would you say?
I'd say C.
Yeah.
Equity अलग होती है, market failure अलग होता है.
Okay. So it's okay, Bilal. Um, in the diagram, the imposition of a specific tax causes an industry supply curve to shift from S1 to S2, which area measures the resulting net weight loss to society, given that there was no market failure initially. So, given that there was no market failure initially, means that you're not looking. It's not you're not that the point now. It's not a better socially it's not a better point for social allocation. They're just both the same points. So you don't look at stuff of that sort. Just look at it normally. And if you look at it normally, it would be this particular area, specific tax. That'd be J, K, and N. Because the idea here is, if I want to draw this out, that if you look at it, so this is going to be the tax revenue that's collected by the by the government. So that's your tax revenue. What happens to these triangles is what I'm interested in. I think that they still remain a part. This might remain a part of the consumer surplus. Well, interesting. Any help, guys?
I don't think it would be JK and ऐसे.
Okay. So
Because they've said कि like बल्कि हाँ, it should be JK. क्योंकि additional तो वही आ रहा है और तो कुछ नहीं.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's JKN. I'm just trying to figure. I can't remember the AR stuff where we used to figure out what went where. So this basically goes to the government as tax revenue. So that's fine. You have to look at it, a triangle that disappears from consumer and producer surplus and is not gained by any stakeholder. So this disappears from the surplus, but it is gained by the government. If you, oh yeah. So this X and Y thing are also not part of either your producer surplus or your consumer surplus. However, I don't know, maybe they were gained by someone.
नहीं तो it should be D ना.
It should be D then. Q, well, it's definitely not D. Well, because that would include this area as well, which is not true. So like, anyhow,
Oh,
just
listen, I think it's going to be A, maybe. Can it be A?
NLK.
When you look at that point, तुम इस तरह देखो कि initially जब S1 था तो K, P2 and demand curve तक all of that was consumer surplus और उसके नीचे everything was producer surplus. Okay?
Okay, wait. So
And then जब next price set हुआ जब S2 पे मतलब price P1 set हुआ, this was the initial consumer surplus और उसके नीचे producer surplus था. Okay?
yeah. And in fact, I think I was
अब तुमने
marking.
P1 set किया तो P1, P2, N और जो उसके नीचे point है, that's gonna be government revenue. I think.
This is in fact, yeah, sorry. So that was
हाँ,
a mistake we were making. We were marking government tax revenue wrong.
हाँ.
So
This was government revenue and इसके बराबर में deadweight loss.
yeah. Now it makes more sense. And these two are areas that disappeared from surplus. So X basically disappeared from your consumer surplus, and Y was taken away from your producer surplus, and it wasn't gained by any factor stakeholder. So that's what you're going to go with. So that's A. The reason why we don't go for JKN, because even at the old point, it wasn't part of anyone's surplus. It was just irrelevant. So we were just getting confused in that. Even if you look at the old point, where this was your equilibrium, so this was your producer, your consumer surplus was in brown, and your producer surplus was in, I don't know, purple, I guess. Like, so your producer surplus was this. So these were the old surpluses, and so this particular area A was nowhere in the surplus anyway, so it wasn't removed from the surplus. Now your consumer surplus goes to this thing. Your producer surplus, although the diagram is getting a little messy, goes to this. The red is the government tax revenue, so that goes to the government, and but X and Y aren't taken by anyone. So good job, Bilal. Finally. Okay. 16, over a given period, money income in an economy increased by 6%. Over the same period, price rose on average by 4%. So your money income increased by 6%, but your prices also increased by 4%, which kind of go against the effect of the increase in money income. So if you're looking for the change in real income, you'll go 6 minus 4, because an increase in money income increases real income. However, an increase in price level decreases real income, so it goes against it. So you subtract it from the increase in money income. So that should give you a 2% increase in real income, and you get that with A. And then you have other. I don't see how this necessarily affects your income velocity, money supply. I don't know, there's just a little weird options. If this had said something like the volume of income increased by 2%, I might have been inclined to believe them. No, that was still wouldn't be real though. Or would it be? Yeah. If the volume of output had increased by 2%, then I would have been inclined to believe, okay, actual or real GDP increased, but it's decreasing here. So you can just cross these out. You can conclude with A. 17, a closed economy has a banking system consisting of a single bank. Okay, nice. The bank operates with a cash ratio of 10%. Customers deposit 20,000 in cash. Assuming subsequent net withdrawals of cash from banking system are zero, so no one else withdrew anything or deposited anything, what is the maximum amount of loans that the bank can create? So since it's a cash ratio of 10%, so he'll keep 10% of this as in cash. That will be 2,000 in cash, and can loan out the rest, which is 18,000. The question here is, I think we still will employ the credit multiplier, right?
Yes. Yes.
I'm just like a single bank. This just felt a little funny, but yeah, it could still go to the people. Then they could save back in the Wohi bank में save कर लें. Then they loans out again, and so even if it's just one bank, the multiplier would still happen. So that would be 1 upon 10%. So 1 upon the cash ratio, or the liquidity ratio, which is 10% is 10 upon 100, which gives you what, 10. So you multiply this by 10, which gives you 180,000. What will cause the level of investment to fall according to the accelerator model? So your accelerator model used to look at induced investment. So it basically said as national income changes, it is multiplied by the accelerator coefficient, and it leads to a change in the level of investment. So a decrease in national income leads to a decrease in the level of investment. So we look for that. Business confidence is not, it would decrease investment, but it's not according to the accelerator model. So a decrease in the rate of growth of national income. So so if the rate of growth of national income decreases, would that decrease investment? Rate of growth.
हाँ
Yeah, but if the rate of growth, just to clarify, so if the rate of growth decreases, is national income still increasing or is the national income decreasing?
yeah, national income increases, but like accelerator theory, as far as I remember, is like it investment level increases when the rate of growth is increasing of national income.
All right, and anyhow, that was the only option that linked national income, anyways. So increase in interest rates doesn't increase investment, anyways, but that is autonomous investment, not according to the accelerator model. And price of capital equipment and all could change your MEC, your whatever that was, marginal, क्या था MEC efficiency.
इसमें MEC क्यों लगाओगे MPC लगाओगे
No, I'm saying I'm just discussing what option this was. So like
18 रखो
yeah.
हाँ MEC
Anyhow, but the idea is it's not part of your accelerated model. So like just get rid of it. 19. In a closed economy with no government, consumption is 4/5 of income at all levels. So your MPC is 4 upon 5 because you consume 4 upon 5 of the additional increase in weight. Consumption is 4/5 of, or is this your APC in fact?
नहीं MPC
At all. Okay, so in this particular case, even your APC would be the same, because if its consumption is 4/5 of income at all levels of income, it means your APC. This statement is giving you an idea of your APC, because here they're looking at consumption, as a proportion of income. But if your APC is constant, which means if it's true for all levels of income, then even if you increase your income level, what happens? Your consumption increases by 4/5 of the increase of the income level. So even if you look at change here, it still gives you 4/5. But anyhow, to summarize, MPC is 4/5. It's 4 upon 5. Anyhow, the present equilibrium level of income is 220 million. Full employment level of income is 240 million. By how much would investment have to increase to reach full employment? So we first find out the multiplier, which is 1 upon 1 minus MPC. And you take this and you put it in here, which I believe gives you 5. If someone with a calculator could verify. But anyhow, so we know that the present equilibrium level of income is 220 and this is 240, so that the difference in the present level of income and the full employment level of income is 20 million. So there'll be some increase in investment that, let's call that increase X. When it is multiplied by the multiplier, that is 5, it is equals to the difference between the present level of income and the full employment level to give you 20. So that is 20 upon 5, it's 4. 4 million, you increase investment by 4 million, that increases national income by 20 million and gets you to the full employment level of income. Other things being equal, what will result in a decrease in aggregate demand? A decrease in interest rates is expansionary. A decrease in the balance of trade deficit. What they mean by this is that the deficit has gone down, which is in a way of saying that exports revenue has gone up compared to before, and import expenditure has gone down compared to before. So that this is still negative, but this is still, the bracket is less negative than it was before. So this in fact would increase aggregate demand, wouldn't decrease it, as the deficit, if the deficit was increasing, that would decrease aggregate demand. This would only increase aggregate demand. a decrease in the government's budget deficit. So the government's budget deficit is tax revenue minus government expenditure. So you want government expenditure to increase for an increase in aggregate demand, and you want to tax. Wait, you want to decrease here, right?
Yes,
So,
and I
sorry.
think this should be the answer.
Yeah, so you have a decrease. Yeah. So I was looking for an increase. I don't know why. And yeah, so you want a decrease. So here you want tax revenue to go up. You want more to be taxed, and you want less to be spent, and that makes sense because it's now you're moving away from a deficit. You're going towards a surplus, or your deficit is decreasing. So obviously, what's happening? You're having relatively more tax revenue and relatively less government expenditure. So that decreases aggregate demand. If households save less, they obviously consume more, so that increases aggregate demand, not decreases it. We can quickly check our answers for these 10 MCQs. All right, so these 10 MCQs were fine. We'll finish this paper off in the next video.